So as we move on, we're going to look at some measures of location. Measures of location of a data set. Some simple measures of location might be the maximum or the minimum value. But today we're going to spend some time looking at measures of central tendency. Now the phrase central tendency really just means the middle. Different ways to talk about and measure the middle of a data set. Now the mean, the median and the mode are the most popular measures of central tendency, are the most popular measurements and ways to describe the middle of a data set. And each has their advantages and disadvantages. Each has a good reason to be used and a good reason not to be used. And we'll go into those. So through this video, I'm going to remix what you saw in the transition video for mean and median, but I'm also going to go a little bit further with it. And I'm going to introduce some calculator skills that will speed up your processing. A vital exam skill, as you'll be able to process certain questions in less than a quarter of the time it may well have taken you at GCSE. So we'll learn to use our calculators correctly and to respond to questions with pace and accuracy. Alright, so moving on to some stats bridging the gap support. I'll quickly go through an example of each of the segments that you have in your Bridging the Gap booklet, just to remind you really of some of the things you should have learned from GCSE and to make sure you're absolutely ready to start A-level maths, particularly the statistics portion of that. Okay, so the first section asks you to find the mean and the median of the data set below. For us to find the mean, we're going to need to sum up all of the pieces of data that we currently have and divide by how many there are. So the general formula for that, if you recall, is to find the sum of all of the individual data items and divide by how many there are. Okay, so we're going to sum up all of the values that we have there and we're going to divide by the count. The count is how many of them were there to begin with. Well, there were 11, so this sum in the numerator, all divided by 11, and that's going to give us the mean. While we're here, I'm going to introduce you to a new symbol, X bar. X bar is how we're going to represent and reference the mean for A-level maths. All right, so X bar is going to equal, quick calculator job, and we get 605 divided by 11, which simplifies down to 55. Nice whole number. Okay, and that would be the mean. So finding the mean should be familiar for you. The issue we have here is this is quite a cumbersome calculation and it would have taken you quite some time to enter this into a standard calculator to respond to the question. The calculators you've been issued with actually have some powerful functionality behind them and would allow you to enter a data set and then will produce a whole raft of summary statistics based on that data set. Okay, so let's go through an example. So from the main menu screen, if you choose option 2, that will take you into the stats menu. Now here we have a mini spreadsheet in which you can enter your data set. So I'm just individual pieces of data into the calculator. On the left hand side, you may notice that it's keeping a count of how many data points I've put in. In the second column, I'm just going to fill that with ones. The second column is going to hold the frequency. I had one of each of these data values that I've put in. From here, if we press calc, one variable, we get this screen with all of these statistics based on that data set. We're interested, for now, in the mean. And right up here at the top, we have X bar. So we have that mean answer straight away. We also have the summary statistics, the sum of X and the value of N. These are the two numbers that we divided when we did it by hand. These are the values that we found when we processed this the long way round on a basic calculator. If you scroll down, we actually have a lot more statistics that we can use. Some of them you won't be familiar with just now, but as we make our way through the course, you'll see why they're useful. We have the sum of X squared. We have the standard deviation. If we scroll, we can see that we have the median, we have the mode, and we have the frequency of the mode. We have the maximum, we have the minimum. So there's quite a lot that we can get from entering those numbers once into the stats menu of the calculator. You may notice that I've put a purposeful emphasis on using the notation for the formula for X bar. This notation is going to come up all the way through the course. Summation notation and using N for frequencies. Let's see how we can use that to solve this question. The mean of a sample of 25 observations is 6.4. The mean of a second sample of 30 observations is 7.2. Calculate the mean of all 55 observations. The most common mistake for this type of question is that students try to actually just find what's the average of these two means. Now that wouldn't work unless the sample sizes were the same. And here we can see that one of them is larger than the other. We can't just go ahead and find the average of the two means. We have to break it down into its summary statistics. For me to find the mean of the 55 observations, I need to know what the grand total is from both of these individual observations. This is like two different classes and they've both done tests, and we know the mean for one class and the mean for the other class. To know the overall mean of the two classes together, I need to know the total score for class X and the total score for class Y. Okay, let's rearrange this formula. As we rearrange to make the sum of X the subject, I see that I need to multiply X bar by the frequency, X bar by N, and that gives us 160. So that's the total for the X sample. We'll do a similar thing for the Y sample. So rearranging the formula, the sum of Y equals Y bar multiplied by N. I have both of those values, and that gives me 216. This means that the grand total is going to be 376. So the mean for everyone altogether, the mean for those two sets together is going to be the total, or the sum, divided by the total frequency. So that's sum X plus sum Y, and we're going to divide by the two frequencies. I'm going to differentiate them with NX and NY, the frequency for the X values and the frequency for the Y values. So that calculation gives us 376 over 55, and just quickly into the calculator, 6.84 is the combined mean for all 55 observations. Some of you may have done this type of question at GCSE, and this is how I would have set it up for my GCSE class. I would have shown them that we have total divided by frequency equals the mean, and we're just going to fill in this table backwards. So I know that the mean was 6.4, and I know the frequency was 25. That would have generated a total of 160. On the second line, a mean of 7.2 and a frequency of 30 gives me a total of 216. And at this point, I can add together those totals, I can add together those frequencies, and I can do that division to get the new mean. The emphasis here, and maybe a misunderstanding here, is that you can't simply add the two means together. We have to go back to the raw summary statistics. We need to find a grand total, and we need to find a grand frequency, and from there we can calculate the overall mean. The median. Remember, to find the median, we're going to need to have these values in order. So all of these 11 values, I need to write them in numerical order, ascending or descending. So let's get into it. Okay, so probably the easiest way to arrange these numbers is just to, there's not too many of them. Let me look through and see what's the smallest tens column number that I have. So I have a few of them that are in the 40s. All right, with those few numbers, it's a lot less to work with in my head. I know I can put them in order. Okay, I've dealt with all of those numbers. What's next? Anything in the 50s? Got a few of them right here. Once again, those numbers quite quickly in order: 52, 52, 57, 59. Okay, and then there's only a few left, so I can see that I've got 65, 66, and 73. All right, quite trivial putting those in order, but we want to make sure we're as efficient as possible. So now I want to locate the median. Some of you may be used to crossing off the first and the last, the first and the last, the first and the last, but I want to use a more formal way of locating the median. And we're going to do that by taking the count, adding on 1, and dividing by 2. This is going to tell me the location of the median. What position in this list I should look for the median. Okay, and the position to look for the median is, in this particular case, it's going to be, the count was 11. 11 plus 1 divided by 2. It's 12 divided by 2. That's the 6th position. Whichever number is in the 6th position, that is going to be my median. Okay, so just counting through, I can see the 6th position is taken up by this number, 52. Alternate methods would have got us there as well. But I want, once again, for us to be efficient, we need to think about what happens if I had 100 numbers to work through. I wouldn't expect you to be cancelling or crossing off the first and the last, the first and the last. I expect you to be able to identify where you're looking for the median. Okay, we'll see a similar technique when we come round to quartiles. So the median in this case was 52. So what would happen if you got a decimal value for your position of the median? If I got the 4.5, or if I got 4.5 as my response to this calculation, that means I'm looking exactly in between the 4th and the 5th piece of data. So 4.5 or any other decimal means you're looking in between the integer values to the left and the right of that particular decimal value. So you may well see a few of those in the exercise you're going to do.
And so here again, we could have actually found the median from the summary statistics screen on your calculator. Here it says that the median is 52. It hasn't told us the position of the median, but we've got straight to the value of the median. So really, we could have answered both questions within seconds. In less than a minute, we could have got an answer for the mean and the median if we made use of the functionality on a good calculator.
Okay, so in this question, we've been told that Rebecca's recording the shirt collar size of the male students in her year and the results she's put into this table. We've been asked to find a few statistics here, the mode, the median, and the mean. Now, we could do these manually, and for each of them, we'd have to use a different process. But if we put these into the statistics mode of the calculator, we'll actually be able to answer all 3 of these questions all at once. So I want you first to go into the calculation menu, and we just need to change one of the settings. So F6 will take you to the set menu. And if you see here, it says 1 variable frequencies, and we're going to change that to list 2. What that does is it tells your calculator that list 2 is going to contain the frequencies that correspond to the X values that you put in list 1. So we're going to go ahead and transfer all of those X values for the shirt collar sizes into list 1. So 15, 15.5, 16 and 16.5. And right next to that, we're going to put the corresponding frequencies. Now, once again, we're going to go to the summary statistics page, which we get to by pressing the calc button, by pressing the calc button to get to the calculation menu, and it's 1 variable summary statistics that we're looking for. So calc, 1 variable, and we'll have our summary statistics. Now, when you do this, the first thing I want you to check is actually the N value. Check the N value first. Does it make sense? 95 is perfect. I was expecting quite a large frequency. If your N value was 4 or 5, then you know you haven't set your calculator list 2 function up correctly. Okay, so we've got our mean, and as we scroll down, we have a few more variables to work with. We were asked for the mode, and actually here we can see the mode is 16.5. The other 2 values tell us that there is only 1 mode, which is great, and it tells us the frequency of that mode, which is 34. So we have the mode and we have some additional information about the mode. So you can simply just write down mode equals 16.5. Next, we will ask for the median. Okay, so if we just scroll down again, the median is displayed here for us, and the median is 16. And scrolling to the top again, we see that the mean is 16.1842. Okay, so we inputted those data values once, and we were able to pull off all of those summary statistics quite quickly. So that's the power and the usefulness of having a good calculator in your pocket.
Okay, let's just talk for a moment here about how to decide which of these measures of central tendency are best to use in particular situations. We'll start with the mode. It's probably the least popular out of the three, but the mode is the only one that can be used if you have qualitative data. If you have non-numerical data, you can't use the median. You can't put them in order. You can't use the mean. You can't sum those pieces of data together. If it was people's names or people's favorite color, you can't sum them. There's no calculation to do. So the mode is the only option we have if we have qualitative data. We should probably also use the mode if we're actually interested in what's the most popular response. Which of the responses occurred the most often? Manufacturers, they potentially need to know what is the most popular size, what is the most popular color, what is the most popular style, what are the most popular specifications for the products that they decide to produce. The mode can be important for those situations. If we have to choose between the other two, well, the mean is the default best choice to go for, because the mean uses all of the data points. It uses all of the information that you have to generate a value that truly represents all of the data pieces. Now, there is one exception. The exception is when your data set has extreme values. Now, when there are extreme values, the strength of the mean now becomes a weakness. The fact that all of the values are included in the calculation is a disadvantage when one of those values is skewed. No. When one of those values is an extreme value. When one of those values is an extreme outlier. Extreme values have a huge impact on the mean. So if we do have extreme values, we can actually revert to the median. The nice thing about the median is that it doesn't use all of the values. So those extremes are not going to have a big impact on the median. Those extremes are largely ignored, and we go and hone in on a data point which is right at the middle once they've been ordered. So each of the three have their advantage, each of the three have their uses, each of the three have their drawbacks. There are other features that we'll look at as we make our way through the course, such as symmetry. Sometimes the mean, the median, and the mode are all very similar values. They're all correct to one decimal place, and that gives us some more insight to the data set that we're working with. But I'll save that for a future video. But in the meantime, be aware that in an assessment, you may well be asked to justify why a choice has been made around choosing the mean over the median, or choosing the median over the mean, or why the mode has not been chosen, or why the mode has potentially been the only one that we could use in that situation. So just learn these pros and cons and be prepared to reflect and demonstrate your understanding in an assessment or even in a conversation.
Okay, and we're just about finished, but before you move on to some practice questions, let's take a quick look at the specification and exactly what it is that students are expected to be able to show, exactly what the examiners are anticipating you will be confident on. While you read through that, I want to quickly remind you that it will be sensible for you to come back and watch this video at a later date, maybe come back in 2 or 3 weeks or before an assessment, and as you watch through the second time round, because you've done your practice, a lot of what you go through here should resonate with you much more. And you have a chance to really embed your understanding of the difficult concepts, the ones that have been flagged up as A star.